The coffee was still warm when Donna Halloran vanished from her small log cabin in Elk River, Minnesota. Population 9,012. On the night of October 3, 1987, the wind from Lake Mille Lacs blew through, carrying a chill and thick fog that blanketed the quiet forest roads. At 9:47 p.m., Donna's neighbor, Walter Grady, noticed the kitchen light still on in her house as he stepped onto his porch to water his plants one last time before bed. Donna, 36, an accountant, lived with her 8-year-old daughter and was alone that night after dropping her daughter off at a friend's house. The next morning, the front door was slightly ajar, the curtains swayed gently, and the cold coffee remained on the table. But Donna was gone. What happened in the hours that followed would haunt Elk River for nearly 30 years. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. In 1987, the town of Elk River, Minnesota, was still a quiet suburb nestled among birch forests and cold, misty lakes year-round. Life here moved slowly. People knew each other through church services, the small grocery store, and the town's only coffee shop. Among the residents on the outskirts, Donna Halloran, 36 years old, was a familiar name. She worked as an accountant for a local fuel supply company, known for being hardworking, reserved, and devoted to her 8-year-old daughter, Kristen. The mother and daughter lived in a small white log cabin on the edge of town near County Road 13, leading to Lake Mille Lacs. The house often had its lights on late, as Donna had a habit of working extra hours in the evenings, sometimes cleaning into the night. It was a familiar scene in the neighborhood, soft yellow light filtering through the curtains, the sound of the radio playing the evening news, and the tranquility of a small town where major events were rare. That Saturday evening, Donna was home alone after dropping Kristen off at a friend's house for a sleepover. The air was chilly, and the wind from the lake rustled the leaves. Nearby neighbors said they saw the light on in Donna's house late into the night, but heard no unusual noises. When morning came, the first rays of sunlight shone through the window, and silence enveloped the house. The front door was slightly open, the curtains moved lightly, Donna's coat still hung neatly in the closet, and her purse and keys were in their usual spot on the table by the entrance. There were no signs of a hurried departure or any note suggesting she had plans to go out. When relatives came to pick up Kristen, they found no trace of Donna. They called her workplace, her friends, and the places she frequented, but no one had any information. The phone in the house was still in its place, and the dining table held a single cup of cold coffee. As time passed, worry turned to panic as all clues led back to that empty house. The family ultimately decided to report Donna Halloran's disappearance to the local police. When the first Sherburne County Patrol team arrived, the early morning light was still mingled with fog, the ground was damp and cold, and the birch trees around the house swayed lightly in the wind. The dirt road leading to the property was narrow, barely wide enough for a single vehicle. Donna's small log cabin stood silent, its front door slightly ajar, the curtains gently swaying. The police officers secured the area around the house, instructing the family to leave everything untouched for inspection. They noted the overall scene. The door showed no signs of being forced. The hinges and lock were intact, and the household items remained orderly, with no evidence of rummaging. Everything seemed frozen in the middle of an ordinary evening. On the dining table sat a cold cup of coffee and the previous morning's newspaper. Near the front door, the wooden floor bore a small streak of mud, with faint shoe prints leading from outside inward. A torn piece of fabric, stained with a dark mark, lay near the doorstep. The forensic team took photographs, collected the fabric sample, and lifted the shoe prints for comparison. Inside the living room, they found a small brownish-red stain on the wooden floor, suspected to be dried blood. The sample was collected and sealed on-site. During the sweep, a light-colored hair was found on the rug, not matching Donna's hair color, and was carefully picked up with tweezers and stored in a separate container. The entire process of collecting samples and marking evidence was conducted meticulously, with every step documented in the scene report. The upstairs of the house showed no signs of disturbance. The bed was neatly made, and personal belongings remained untouched. Behind the house, the police checked the small garden and the path leading to the forest, where the ground was still soft from the previous night's rain. They found a few footprints mixed in the mud, but they were too faint to identify. A damp wool glove was found near the fence, its owner unknown, and was also sealed as evidence. After completing the inspection, the investigation team created a detailed diagram of the entire house, photographing every angle and evidence location. The blood, hair, fabric, and shoe print samples were sent to the county lab for analysis. The scene report sent to the station noted no signs of forced entry or theft. The victim's belongings were intact, and it was likely that the person who entered the house was someone known to her. Based on the scene, the police concluded that Donna may have opened the door for someone she trusted, and something unusual happened shortly after. The house was sealed for the investigation, with officers assigned to guard it in shifts while the first samples were sent for testing. From that morning, Donna Halloran's small house became the official scene of an unsolved disappearance, marking the beginning of a long and meticulous investigation by the authorities. On the first day after the scene was secured, the Sherburne County Police began collecting statements from residents living near Donna Halloran's house. The goal was to determine if anyone saw her leave the house or noticed anything unusual on the night she vanished. Within a half-mile radius of the house, there were only 5 households, most of whom had lived there for years. All stated they heard no strange noises, no signs of commotion or struggle that night. A woman living 3 houses away from Donna said she saw the lights on in Donna's house around midnight, but didn't notice when they went off. The neighbor across the street mentioned that his dog barked aggressively around midnight, but he thought it might have been due to a wild animal. No one saw Donna leave the house. The police expanded their inquiries to nearby neighborhoods and County Road 13, which connected Donna's house to the highway. Some night shift workers were questioned, but no specific information emerged. Near the end of the morning, the investigation team received a tip from a gas station about 2 miles north of Donna's house. The gas station employee Richard Myers reported that around midnight, as he was closing his shift, he saw a young man walking alone along the roadside. According to Myers, the individual was about 16 or 17 years old, with curly blonde hair, a slim build, wearing a light-colored jacket, and carrying a dark backpack. He walked slowly, head down, occasionally glancing behind him. Initially, Myers thought it was a student returning late from an outing and paid little attention, but upon hearing about the disappearance, he felt the detail might be significant. The police recorded his statement and cross-checked it with a list of teenagers living in the Elk River area. Within a day, they narrowed it down to 4 individuals matching the description, with Brennan Doyle, 16 years old, living with his parents just over a mile from Donna's house, standing out. Brennan was a high school student with no criminal record, though teachers had reported him as having a hot temper and getting into minor trouble at school. The police visited the Doyle family's neighborhood for further information. A few neighbors recalled that it was a cold night with few people outside, but one man living at the end of the street mentioned seeing the lights of a small motorcycle passing through the area around midnight, then stopping near the turn by the Doyle residence. He wasn't sure who was riding due to the darkness and poor visibility. The police noted all statements and checked security cameras at shops along the main road. But in 1987, such equipment was rudimentary, and many places didn't retain nighttime footage. Beyond these sparse details, no other witnesses could provide specific information. In the summary report sent to the station, the investigation team concluded that no one saw Donna leave her house, nor was there evidence suggesting she was openly abducted. The gas station witness's account of seeing a young man walking that night was the only notable detail at the time. The police retained Myers' statement, created a profile of the curly-haired youth with a backpack, and began cross-referencing local residents for further verification. At this stage, Brennan Doyle's name was added to the list of individuals to be investigated, though no evidence directly linked him to Donna Halloran's disappearance. Based on the gas station witness's statement, the police focused on verifying the identity of the young man matching the description and quickly contacted Brennan Doyle's family. Brennan, a 16-year-old high school student, lived with his parents in a neighborhood just over a mile from Donna Halloran's house. When the police arrived that morning, Brennan was at school. They requested that he and his parents appear at the station for questioning that afternoon. At the Sherburne County office, the interview took place with his parents present, as required for a minor. Brennan was slim, with naturally curly blonde hair and a youthful face, speaking slowly. When asked about the previous Saturday night, he stated he was home all evening, but had an argument with his father about school and grades, so around midnight, he went for a walk to clear his head. He said he walked along County Road 13 to the area near the gas station and then returned home, not meeting anyone or knowing anything about Donna Halloran. When investigators asked for the specific time he returned, Brennan replied, "Probably around 1 a.m. then went to bed." His statement was recorded and signed by his parents. The police compared it to the timeline provided by Richard Myers and noted some consistency, so they obtained a warrant to search the Doyle residence for additional evidence. The search took place the next morning. The Doyle family's house was in a quiet neighborhood, a two-story home with an attached garage. The police conducted a thorough sweep, starting with Brennan's room. In his closet, they found a wooden box containing a set of 6 silver knives, but only 5 remained. Brennan's mother explained that the set belonged to his father, used for camping, and they weren't sure when one went missing. Under Brennan's bed, they found a pair of Red Wing athletic shoes, size 10, with rubber soles, a common type in the area. Investigators noted that the shoe size matched the prints found at Donna's house. They photographed the shoes, measured the soles, and collected soil samples from the treads for comparison analysis. When asked about the shoes, Brennan said he wore them regularly for school and walking, unaware of why they might match the prints at the scene. In the laundry room, the police found some of Brennan's clothes still damp, reportedly washed earlier, but no stains or unusual odors were noted. They collected a few fabric samples for storage, but initial results showed nothing unusual. The rest of the house revealed nothing suspicious. Windows and doors were intact, and no items bore blood or other questionable marks. Everything was photographed, documented, and sealed per protocol. The search report was sent to the Sherburne County Station that day. Initial findings showed no direct evidence linking Brennan Doyle to Donna Halloran's disappearance. No blood samples, fingerprints, or items confirmed his presence in the victim's house. The police only noted the coincidence of the shoe size and his presence near the area during the time of the disappearance. Lacking legal grounds for detention, Brennan was allowed to return home. However, in the case file, his name was marked as a person of interest. The police continued monitoring the Doyle family's activities and requested further information from the school and neighbors about Brennan's recent behavior. All collected data was added to the case file, marking the end of the initial verification phase, with the only suspect identified at that point. After completing the questioning and search of Brennan Doyle's home, the Sherburne County Police focused all resources on searching for the victim. The goal was to determine whether Donna Halloran was still in the Elk River area or had left the town. In the first few days, the search centered on a 5-mile radius from the victim's house. Teams were divided into small groups, combining police, volunteers, and rescue personnel. Minnesota's Missing Persons Task Force was also deployed, bringing heat-sensing equipment and rescue boats to search around Lake Mille Lacs, with its complex terrain and numerous trails leading to the water. For the first 3 days, over 100 people participated in combing the sparse forest behind Donna's house, where a dirt road connected to the outskirts. They checked every shallow ditch, tree base, and area along the Elk River. A K-9 unit was deployed to track the scent from Donna's clothing taken from the house. The dogs led the team north to County Road 13, stopping at an intersection with a trail to the lake. The scent trail ended there, possibly washed away by the previous night's rain. Investigators marked this area as a focal point and requested an expanded search around the lake's perimeter. By the fourth day, the search extended to the eastern side of Lake Mille Lacs. Police used small boats to check reed beds, while rescue divers scanned the lake bed with sonar at suspicious locations. Along the shoreline, volunteer teams moved in a line formation, inspecting every low-lying area. At noon that day, a team spotted a shiny object in bushes about 50 meters from the shore. Upon closer inspection, they identified it as a silver heart-shaped necklace with a broken chain. The evidence was immediately handed to the lead investigator. After comparison, Donna's family confirmed it was a necklace she often wore, a birthday gift from her mother. This discovery prompted the team to intensify the search in the surrounding area. But aside from the necklace, no other signs were found, no clothing, documents, blood, or personal items. The police marked the location, photographed it, and sent the evidence to the lab for further analysis. For a week, the search continued almost non-stop. Daily updates were provided to the state police and local media, urging residents to share any information, no matter how small. Some reported seeing a car resembling Donna's on Highway 10, but timeline cross-checks yielded no confirmation. Search coordinators noted worsening weather, with strong winds from the lake and rapidly dropping temperatures, causing rising water levels and reduced visibility. By the second week, heavy rain flooded most dirt roads, preventing rescue teams from using vehicles. The command team decided to pause large-scale operations for safety reasons. A small group remained to monitor the lake's shoreline and main roads in case new signs emerged. By the end of the month, the police summarized the entire search area. Nearly 70 square miles of forest and lake had been scoured, hundreds of soil samples and miscellaneous items collected. But aside from the necklace, no evidence directly linked to Donna Halloran was found. The report sent to Sherburne County stated, "No body was discovered, no vehicle or signs of movement outside the residential area were found. The only suspicious trace is the location of the silver necklace." Due to the harsh October weather and dwindling manpower, the official search was temporarily halted. Maps and collected data were archived for the next phase of analysis. Although no concrete results were achieved, the police determined that Lake Mille Lacs remained the focal point in the hypothesis of where the victim may have disappeared. As the early seasonal rain turned to light snow, the area was temporarily sealed off, marking the end of the initial 2-week continuous search operation. A week after the search was paused due to bad weather, the Sherburne County Police received a report from the St. Cloud Police Department, about 30 miles south of Elk River. A security guard at a movie theater on Division Avenue reported a silver BMW parked in the lot for several days, with no one claiming it. According to him, the vehicle was first noticed on the previous Friday evening and remained in the same spot by Wednesday morning. Upon inspection, he noticed the headlights were still on, but the battery was dead. The license plate matched the registration of Donna Halloran, the missing person from Elk River. The information was immediately relayed to the main investigation team. The next morning, the Sherburne County Forensic Team, in coordination with St. Cloud Police, secured the parking lot and conducted a scene investigation. The BMW was parked at the edge of the lot, near a metal fence, surrounded by other vehicles lightly covered in dust. The car was unlocked, with the driver's side door slightly ajar and the steering wheel tilted slightly to the left, as if the driver had stopped abruptly. Inside, the interior was intact, with no signs of rummaging. The front seat had a dark brown stain, suspected to be dried blood. On the passenger side floor was a metal lighter engraved with DH on the bottom. Other items included a small paper bag, a few gas receipts, and a dried tissue. The police photographed the entire vehicle, marking the position of each piece of evidence before collection. Wearing gloves, they used cotton swabs to collect samples of the blood stain from the driver's seat, gearshift, and door handle. The samples were individually labeled, sealed in test tubes, and placed in a portable cold storage unit. The lighter, receipts, and tissue were also sealed separately. Faint fingerprints were found on the door and steering wheel, but due to the damp and dusty surfaces, they were too smudged to identify clearly. A technician attempted to lift prints from the rearview mirror, but only obtained a few partial prints insufficient for immediate analysis. After completing the evidence collection, the vehicle was loaded onto a tow truck and transported to the St. Cloud Police Department's storage garage. There, the forensic team continued a detailed inspection. They removed the floor mats, checked the rear cargo area and trunk, and found no personal items or signs of concealed objects. The car battery was removed for electrical testing. Technicians concluded the headlights had been on continuously for hours, possibly since the vehicle was abandoned. The forensic team's summary report noted, the BMW showed no signs of forced entry or tampering, suggesting it was likely used by someone familiar to the owner or driven by Donna herself before being abandoned. The fact that the headlights were left on indicated a rushed departure or abrupt stop. There were no signs of theft. Items like registration documents, inspection papers, and a storage box remained in the glove compartment. Cloud Police reviewed security footage around the movie theater, but as it was 1987, most cameras recorded on magnetic tape and only operated during business hours, with no nighttime data available. The theater security guard couldn't recall exactly when the car appeared, as the lot was open 24 hours and often had vehicles parked overnight. A few employees from a nearby restaurant noted seeing the car in the lot, but didn't observe anyone entering or exiting it. The preliminary investigation results, along with detailed scene photographs, were sent to the Sherburne County Police Department. The discovery of the car was the first significant physical evidence beyond Donna's house. While it didn't provide direct clues about the victim, it helped establish a possible range of movement for the person or persons involved on the night she vanished. After completing the collection, all evidence from the BMW was carefully sealed and sent, along with prior case evidence, to the county lab for comprehensive analysis. The forensic report was completed after over a week of continuous work, detailing all examination results within the limits of 1987 technology. Blood samples from the driver's seat and house floor were identified as type O+, matching Donna Halloran's medical records. However, as DNA identification technology was not yet widely used, the forensic team could only analyze blood type and basic cellular structure, insufficient to confirm individual identity. The report explicitly noted that it was impossible to determine if all blood samples belonged to the victim or included another person's. The torn fabric from MBS from the porch was analyzed. Results showed it was light gray polyester, commonly used in men's jackets in the 1980s, particularly for travel or fall windbreakers. The frayed edges suggested mechanical tearing, possibly from contact with a sharp object or a strong pull, but the exact timing couldn't be determined. The threads and dust on the fabric contained no distinctive traces to identify its origin. The shoe prints found at the scene were analyzed separately. The forensic team took magnified photographs of the sole and compared them to common local models. The prints were identified as Red Wing, size 10, a standard men's style widely sold in Minnesota. When compared to Brennan Doyle's shoes from the house search, the size and sole pattern were nearly identical, but the wear patterns differed. The report concluded that it couldn't be confirmed whether the prints came from the same pair due to the lack of unique characteristics like specific dents or uneven wear. Other evidence, including the unfamiliar hair and fabric samples from Brennan's clothing, was examined under an optical microscope. The hair found in the victim's house was lighter and finer than Donna's, but couldn't be definitively linked to Doyle due to the commonality of the hair color in the area. The fabric samples from Brennan's clothing didn't match the torn fabric from the scene. All results were documented in the forensic report, cataloged and added to the case file. In addition to evidence analysis, the police reviewed external factors. Donna's acquaintances, co-workers, and neighbors were investigated to rule out personal conflicts or financial disputes. No one had a clear motive. No large sums of money were missing from her accounts, and there were no signs she planned to leave town. The car's discovery 30 miles away led police to hypothesize that Donna was either attacked unexpectedly at home or lured outside, with the car later abandoned. After compiling the results, the investigation team refocused on Brennan Doyle as the only suspect. He was the only person seen near the victim's house during the relevant time frame, owned shoes matching the size of the prints, and was missing a knife from a family set. However, all evidence was circumstantial. No blood, fingerprints, or definitive items linked Brennan to the scene, and the evidence was too common to support charges. During further questioning, Brennan maintained his original statement. He went for a walk to relieve stress and had no contact with Donna. The Doyle family continued to cooperate, but insisted on having their lawyer present for all interactions. At an internal meeting at the end of the month, the investigation team concluded that the case was at a standstill. The forensic report, while procedurally complete, offered no new identifiable breakthroughs. The collected evidence only supported initial hypotheses without proving criminal activity. The Sherburne County Sheriff ordered continued discreet monitoring of Brennan Doyle, while expanding the investigation to nearby areas for new witnesses. Instead of pressing charges or closing the case, the team opted for long-term surveillance, a cautious approach based on the assumption that if Doyle was involved, he would eventually reveal suspicious behavior. From late 1987 through 1988, plainclothes officers regularly monitored Brennan's activities, his school schedule, hangouts, and friendships. Detailed logs showed Brennan led a relatively normal life, with no signs of violence or psychological instability. Teachers described him as an average student, quiet but occasionally temperamental, though not aggressive. Classmates said he enjoyed fixing bicycles and spent most weekends at home or wandering the neighborhood. The police made multiple visits to speak with his parents, but nothing suspicious emerged. The Doyle family cooperated but expressed frustration over the prolonged scrutiny, insisting their son had no connection to Donna Halloran's disappearance and wishing to be left alone. In March 1989, Brennan's father, Patrick Doyle, was transferred to a job in Iowa, and the family left Elk River for Fort Dodge. The move was swift, reported to local authorities, and showed no signs of evasion. The police recorded their new address in Fort Dodge, but lacked jurisdiction to continue direct surveillance out of state. Brennan Doyle's file was marked passive monitoring, meaning updates would only occur if he was linked to another criminal case. During this period, the Donna Halloran case stalled. No new witnesses or evidence emerged, and theories continued to center on the possibility of harm by an acquaintance. In late 1989, the Iowa State Police sent a report to Sherburne County about an incident at the Doyle residence. According to the report, Fort Dodge police responded to a domestic dispute between Brennan and his brother, involving a physical altercation. During the intervention, police seized a set of silver knives from the garage out of concern they could be used as weapons. A preliminary check showed the set matched the description of the knives noted in the 1987 Doyle house search, but no blood or damage was found. Patrick Doyle explained that the set was old, with one knife lost during the move, but later found in a box of old items. The incident was handled administratively as a family dispute, with no injuries or charges filed. Upon receiving this information, Sherburne County Police requested Iowa retain the knife set for comparison. Analysis confirmed the set was from the same production line as the one seized in 1987, a common brand in Minnesota. However, no biological or material evidence linked it to Donna's case, so it couldn't be considered incriminating. All related documentation was added to the case file, noting the knives were seized in an unrelated incident. In the following year, Brennan graduated high school and began working at a small mechanic shop in Fort Dodge. His personal information remained in Minnesota's police database, but no criminal activity was recorded. Local Iowa police periodically reported on the Doyle family's stable residence with no notable issues. In Elk River, the Donna Halloran case was gradually shifted from active investigation to unresolved. The evidence, blood samples, torn fabric, unfamiliar hair, red wing shoe print photos, scene photographs, and records of the Doyle knives, was organized, packaged, and stored in the county's archive. By late 1989, after nearly 2 years of surveillance and investigation, the police had no further justification to pursue Brennan Doyle. No criminal behavior, new physical evidence, or additional witnesses connected him to the case. The internal report concluded, no legal basis to continue investigating Brennan Doyle in the disappearance of Donna Halloran. All evidence will remain stored for future analysis as technology permits. From that point, Brennan Doyle's name largely vanished from public reports and documents, fading alongside the growing silence surrounding the unresolved disappearance of Donna Halloran. In 1990, after over 2 years with no new developments, the Donna Halloran case was officially classified by the Sherburne County Sheriff's Department as an unresolved missing person case. This decision was signed by the acting sheriff following a final review meeting with investigators, forensic experts, and county prosecutors. The meeting minutes stated that all investigative avenues had been pursued, key witnesses questioned, and no grounds existed to expand the investigation at that time. All documents, evidence, and interview records were organized, sealed per protocol, and transferred to the county's special case archive. The archived evidence included all critical samples collected during the investigation, type O+ blood samples from the house floor and BMW driver's seat, gray polyester torn fabric, the unfamiliar hair from the living room, photographs of size 10 Red Wing shoe prints, scene photographs from inside and outside the house, copies of the 1987 forensic report, and all records related to the Doyle family's knife set. Additionally, all witness statements, search operation reports around Lake Mille Lacs, and Brennan Doyle's surveillance logs were printed, bound, and individually coded. The forensic team sealed each piece of evidence in specialized containers, labeled with tamper-proof seals, and transferred them to the county's archive. Per Minnesota regulations, unresolved missing person case files must be retained for at least 20 years in case of technological advancements or new information. The archive room, located in the basement of the Sherburne County Administration Building, housed hundreds of unsolved cases, organized by year and case type. The Donna Halloran file was placed in Cabinet 4B, third drawer, labeled Elk River, October 1987, missing person. At the same time, Brennan Doyle was no longer under surveillance. His file in the state police system was updated to verified no violations. The Doyle family lived stably in Fort Dodge, Iowa, with no recorded criminal incidents. Sherburne County Police sent a formal notice to Iowa Police, officially ending all monitoring activities. Brennan, then 19, was noted as a citizen with no criminal record. His name was removed from the internal watch list, remaining only in the original case file as a questioned individual. In Elk River, the case faded from public discussion. Brief local newspaper articles that year simply noted that the Halloran disappearance remains unresolved. The victim's family moved to live with relatives in another state, leaving the small house on County Road 13 to be rented out. Locals regarded the case as a distant memory, one of many somber stories from the late 1980s. The case file was stamped cold case, meaning it was no longer actively investigated, but could be reopened with new evidence or technology. All related information, including scene reports, evidence lists, and forensic reports, was partially digitized, but original samples were stored in sealed metal containers in a temperature-controlled archive. By late 1990, the entire case file was officially transferred to Sherburne County's Central Archive. A paper copy of the storage confirmation was sent to the prosecutor's office, closing the initial investigation phase of this prolonged disappearance. The final summary report was brief. No new evidence, no identified suspects. Victim, not located. Case temporarily stored per cold case protocol. From that point, Donna Halloran's name existed only in the silent case files in the county building's basement, part of a long list of unresolved cases in Minnesota. Nearly 24 years after the Donna Halloran case was archived as a cold case, criminal investigation technology in Minnesota had transformed. In 2014, the Minnesota Department of Justice, in collaboration with the St. Paul Central Laboratory, launched the Minnesota Cold Case DNA Initiative, a large-scale project to review hundreds of unsolved cases, particularly murders and disappearances with preserved biological evidence. The initiative aimed to apply STR-DNA analysis, far more accurate than the rudimentary blood typing methods of the past, to identify potential matches in the National CODIS database. Starting in early 2014, investigative teams were tasked with reviewing county archives to identify cases eligible for the program. In Sherburne County, the lead investigator was Mark Lamb, then 39 years old, newly appointed to the cold case unit. Lamb had experience in forensics and had previously worked at the St. Paul Crime Lab before transitioning to investigation. While reviewing the list of archived cases, he noticed a file from 1987, the disappearance of Donna Halloran in Elk River. The file noted that evidence samples were fully preserved and sealed, including blood, hair, fabric, and shoe print reports. This met the new program's requirements perfectly. Lamb contacted the Archive Management Office for a physical inspection. The Halloran case evidence boxes were found in Cabinet 4B, with intact seals, untorn tamper-proof labels, and valid transfer records. He cross-checked the original inventory: 4 sealed blood sample tubes, an envelope containing the fabric scrap, a vial with the unidentified hair, and a folder of scene photographs. All were stored in a temperature-controlled environment, per regulations at the time. Preliminary checks confirmed the samples were still viable for modern DNA testing, a rarity for evidence over 2 decades old. After completing the paperwork, Lamb submitted a proposal to the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation, requesting the Halloran case be prioritized for the DNA program. The proposal was approved that same month. On April 12, 2014, all evidence was resealed in specialized containers and transported to the St. Paul Forensic Lab. The transfer was closely monitored, with triple-verified handover records between the archive, Sherburne County Sheriff's Office, and state technicians. At St. Paul, the forensic team, led by Dr. Lauren Hines, began processing the biological samples. The blood sample tubes were opened in a sterile chamber, and small portions were extracted for STR-DNA analysis. Technicians used spectroscopy to verify the sample's integrity, ensuring minimal degradation. The torn fabric was scanned for trace biological evidence, particularly epithelial cells or sweat on the fibers. The unidentified hair was processed separately for mitochondrial DNA analysis to compare with the National Genetic Database. The entire process was meticulous, with each step documented to ensure legal admissibility later. After months of work, the samples showed greater potential for clear genetic data than initially expected. By early 2015, after nearly 9 months of analysis, the St. Paul Forensic Lab completed its official report on the samples from the Donna Halloran case file. The 30-plus page report was sent simultaneously to the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation and the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office. The report's introduction confirmed 2 complete DNA profiles were recovered, one from the blood on the BMW's driver's seat and one from epithelial fibers on the torn fabric found at the victim's porch. Analysis showed the 2 samples matched, indicating they came from the same individual. The genetic data was entered into the National CODIS database for comparison. After 72 hours of processing, the system returned a high probability match, nearly absolute. The DNA from the Halloran crime scene matched the profile of an individual named Brennan Doyle, residing in Iowa. Upon receiving this information, Mark Lamb immediately reviewed the case file and confirmed this was the same person questioned during the initial 1987 investigation. All details aligned: male, born 1971, from Elk River, Minnesota. Further checks revealed Doyle's DNA was in the national database from a 2003 minor assault case in Fort Dodge, Iowa, where he was required to submit a sample during administrative processing. That case was non-serious, and he was released shortly after. The DNA was stored per standard protocol, becoming a comparison point for unsolved cases. The lab's technical report stated a 99.99% match, confirming with near certainty that Brennan Doyle left biological traces in Donna Halloran's car and at her home. Paul lab included charts comparing STR loci, showing complete matches across all analyzed markers. This meant Doyle, or someone directly related, was in the victim's car at the time of the incident. Mark Lamb promptly reported the findings to the Sherburne County Sheriff and the prosecutor's office. After nearly 25 years, investigators had their first concrete physical evidence linking an individual to the disappearance scene. In an emergency meeting on January 4, 2015, stakeholders agreed the case required an official reinvestigation. A special task force was formed, including representatives from the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation, the St. Paul Forensic Lab, and the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office, coordinated by Lamb. Initially, the team reviewed all old documents, including interrogation records, scene photos, and evidence related to Brennan Doyle. Most materials closed in 1990 were well preserved, facilitating re-verification. The police also checked Doyle's current residency through national systems. He still lived in Fort Dodge, Iowa, with stable employment at a mechanic shop and no further crimes since 2003. To ensure legal compliance, Minnesota police requested cooperation from the FBI's Midwest Office for Technical Support and Cross-State Coordination. The FBI, with jurisdiction over interstate cases, responded positively, requesting all DNA data, scene maps, and original investigation reports to assess tracking feasibility. An FBI liaison specializing in unsolved crimes was assigned as the contact for Lamb's team. During this period, supplemental test results on the unidentified hair from the victim's living room were released. The hair's mitochondrial DNA partially matched Doyle's profile, further supporting the conclusion that he was at the scene or had contact with the victim. With 3 independent biological matches, the lab recommended proceeding to field verification and witness interviews. The Sherburne County Sheriff's Office sent an internal notice to the Minnesota Department of Justice, officially reclassifying the Donna Halloran case from unresolved missing person to reopened cold case investigation. This decision was signed on January 19, 2015, ending nearly 2 decades of dormancy in the archive. Immediately after, documents were sent to Fort Dodge to verify Brennan Doyle's personal and criminal history. Administrative records showed he had lived at the same address since 1995, was married, and held steady employment. In the summary report to the Minnesota Department of Justice, Mark Lamb wrote, "DNA results confirm Brennan Doyle's presence at the crime scene and in the victim's vehicle. This is the first scientific evidence directly linking an individual to the case. We propose restarting the full investigation, coordinating with federal agencies to ensure objectivity and legal validity." With this document, the Donna Halloran case was officially reopened after over 25 years as a cold case. Copies of the file were sent to the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation's headquarters, along with all tested samples and DNA data. A new investigation began, built on old evidence now illuminated by technology strong enough to shed light on what had been silent since 1987. Immediately after receiving the DNA results confirming Brennan Doyle's direct link to the crime scene, Mark Lamb began reviewing all old witnesses and evidence to strengthen the timeline. 1980s documents highlighted 2 key witness statements, one from the gas station employee near Donna Halloran's home, and one from a maintenance worker at the St. Cloud Theater, where the victim's BMW was found. Both were recontacted, despite nearly 30 years having passed. The first was Richard Myers, the gas station employee at the County Road 13 intersection, now retired and living in Brainerd. When interviewed, he still clearly recalled the disappearance as it was the most notable event in the area during his employment. He recounted that after 11 p.m. that night, while preparing to close his shift, he saw a young man walking along the roadside heading north. The youth had curly light-colored hair, a slim build, a dark backpack, and a light jacket. Myers noted the street light illuminated his face, leaving a strong impression. He confirmed the description matched the 1987 police sketch he had seen in the newspaper. When shown a current photo of Brennan Doyle, Myers verified the facial structure and hairstyle were consistent with the person he saw that night, despite changes over time. His statement was recorded, signed, and added to the reinvestigation file as supplemental evidence. Next, Lamb traveled to St. Cloud to locate the theater maintenance worker who reported the knife. Through old employment records, he identified Robert Lindgren, then a maintenance worker for a local theater chain. Lindgren, now living in suburban Minneapolis, remembered the incident, as it coincided with finding a metal object in the theater's gutter. He described finding a small silver-bladed knife with a slightly rusted handle caught in the drainage system during a summer 1988 roof cleaning. He turned it over to the theater manager, who passed it to the St. Cloud police. The knife was stored in their evidence locker, but yielded no forensic results due to limited technology at the time. Lindgren reviewed photos of the knife brought by Lamb and confirmed it was the same type he found. When shown images of the Doyle family's knife set from the 1987 search, he immediately recognized the similarity in shape and metal handle design. From these statements, the team began reconstructing a possible timeline of Brennan Doyle's and the victim's movements that night. Using old topographic maps, current satellite imagery, and 1987 timeline data, they hypothesized that Doyle left his home after 11 p.m. Heading north, aligning with Myers' sighting, this route ran along County Road 13, directly connecting to Donna Halloran's neighborhood. Based on the shoe prints, police believed Doyle approached the victim's porch, possibly entering through the unlocked front door. The incident then unfolded inside, with the BMW taken from the scene between midnight and 1 a.m. the 30-mile distance from Donna's house to the St. Cloud Theater parking lot could be driven in just over 30 minutes. Fuel receipts found in the car suggested a possible refueling stop along the route, supporting the theory that Doyle left Elk River and drove to St. Cloud shortly after the incident. The reconstructed map showed a closed loop, Elk River County Road 13, gas station, St. Cloud Cinema. Lamb requested a review of theater-related records to confirm when Lindgren found the knife. Local police verified the knife had been in their evidence locker since 1988, never destroyed. The St. Paul forensic team examined it, confirming it was from the same production line as the Doyle family's knife set reported missing in 1987. This added valuable detail, strengthening the chain of evidence linking Doyle to the BMW and the victim's home. To complete the picture, Lamb reviewed all old scene photos, comparing shoe print locations, the torn fabric, mud streaks, and entryway movement patterns with the new map. Analysis showed the shoe prints aligned with the backyard exit, leading to a trail connecting to County Road 13. This matched the updated gas station witness statement and the hypothesized route Doyle took. As the pieces came together, the timeline of October 3, 1987, became clearer. Donna Halloran vanished between approximately 11 p.m. and early morning. Brennan Doyle, then 16, was near her home, moved north toward St. Cloud, and likely drove the abandoned BMW. All new materials, witness statements, reconstructed maps, and evidence comparisons were added to the reinvestigation file, concluding the review of old witnesses and evidence, and preparing for the next steps of interrogation and confrontation. In April 2015, after completing the witness and evidence review, the Joint Federal Investigation Team, comprising the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation and the FBI's Midwest office, traveled to Fort Dodge, Iowa, to interview Brennan Doyle. The interview took place at the local FBI office, with 2 Sherburne County investigators, an FBI agent, and Doyle's attorney present. Upon receiving the summons, Doyle appeared calm, arrived on time, and expressed willingness to cooperate. In the first session, Mark Lamb briefly outlined the interview's purpose, informing Doyle that the 1987 Donna Halloran disappearance was reopened due to new DNA evidence. Doyle listened calmly, hands clasped. When asked if he knew the victim, he said he only recognized her name from living in the same town, never spoke to her, and had no personal connection. Lamb presented a copy of an old photo of teenage Doyle for witness comparison, but he firmly denied being near Donna's house that night. The questioning lasted over an hour, with Doyle's answers consistent but lacking detail, often pausing to consult his attorney. By mid-afternoon, the investigators presented the DNA results from the St. Paul lab, explaining that samples from the BMW's driver's seat and the torn fabric at the scene fully matched Doyle's profile in the national database. When the analysis report was placed before him, Doyle stared at it for a long time before quietly suggesting there might be an error. The investigators countered that the samples were tested multiple times, with near absolute match probability. Lamb showed the photo of the silver knife found at the St. Cloud Theater, matching the Doyle family's knife set. Doyle glanced at it, slightly furrowing his brow, but remained silent. When asked to explain why his DNA was in Donna's car, Doyle suggested someone might have taken my sample earlier, or a lab mistake. However, when the investigators presented combined evidence, biological traces, the gas station witness statement, and the movement timeline, his demeanor shifted. The interview paused for 10 minutes at his attorney's request. Upon resuming, Doyle sighed, speaking more softly. He admitted being near Donna's house that night, but insisted he had no intent to harm her. In his new statement, Doyle said he left home after arguing with his father about dropping out of school. He walked along County Road 13, carrying a backpack and a small knife used for bike repairs. Passing Donna's house, he saw the BMW parked by the road and decided to try taking it for a drive. He approached the porch, intending to open the door, and found it unlocked. As he stepped inside, Donna suddenly appeared in the living room, shouting and asking who he was. Doyle said he panicked and pushed her to avoid being identified. During the struggle, Donna fell and was injured. Doyle claimed he didn't recall the exact sequence afterward, only that he swung the knife as she tried to run to the door. Blood got on his clothes and hands, causing him to flee in panic. Doyle continued, saying he drove Donna's BMW north after leaving the house. Near Lake Mille Lacs, he stopped by the roadside, fearing discovery. Donna was still alive in the car, and he felt he couldn't take her to a hospital or risk being caught. In a panic, he pulled her out and dragged her to the lake's edge, near an old wooden dock. He said he wrapped her in a blanket from the trunk and pushed her into the water before leaving. By early morning, he drove to the St. Cloud Theater, parked in the back lot, tossed the knife onto the roof, and abandoned the car. He then walked to the highway and hitched a ride on a small truck back near his home. When asked why he didn't report to the police or tell anyone, Doyle shook his head, saying he was only 16, terrified of prison, and wanted to forget it all. The investigators meticulously recorded Brennan Doyle's entire statement, asking him to describe in detail the lake area, the access road, and the parking location. He vaguely recalled a small turnoff with a rusted sign and a wooden bridge cracked in the middle. The team immediately noted these details for later verification. When questioned about the knife, Doyle confirmed it was from his family's old set, but said he couldn't clearly recall what he did with it. He admitted he might have thrown it away while driving, unaware it would later be found. The interrogation lasted nearly 8 hours, concluding late in the evening. Brennan Doyle signed a 17-page statement, confirming its accuracy and voluntariness. His attorney requested a review of all evidence, but did not dispute the confession. The police documented the session, archiving audio and video recordings, and sent an official report of the results to the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office and the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation. The summary report, drafted by Mark Lamb, stated, "During the interrogation, Brennan Doyle admitted to being at the scene on the night of the victim's disappearance, confirming a physical altercation and use of a weapon. The statement aligns with DNA results, collected evidence, and witness testimonies. We recommend field verification at Lake Mille Lacs, where the suspect claims to have disposed of the body." With this confession, The Donna Halloran case entered a new phase of on-site investigation, nearly 30 years after her disappearance from Elk River. Immediately after Brennan Doyle signed his statement, the joint Minnesota and FBI investigation team launched a plan to verify the information at Lake Mille Lacs, the location where he claimed to have disposed of Donna Halloran's body. Based on his account, Doyle described the area as near a small turnoff with a rusted sign and an old wooden bridge about 300 meters from the main road. The Sherburne County Mapping Office reviewed routes around the lake, identifying 3 locations with similar features on the southeastern side of Lake Mille Lacs, near the edge of Mille Lacs State Forest. On April 17, 2015, a specialized search team, including surveyors, divers, and sonar technicians, was dispatched to the area. They set up a temporary command post on the shore, using small boats equipped with bottom-scanning sonar to detect anomalies. The search zone covered about 200 square meters, with water depths of 8 to 12 meters and a muddy sand lake bed. Initial sonar signals detected an unusual reflection at a depth of nearly 10 meters, shaped like a circular object, roughly the size of a human body. Divers were sent to investigate. 2 professional divers conducted the survey in poor underwater visibility. After over 40 minutes, they found an object wrapped in a tattered fabric, lodged among submerged tree roots. Upon contact, the internal structure felt rigid and brittle, suspected to be human bones. The object was secured with old, decayed rope. The divers marked the location with a signal buoy and reported back. The team leader sealed the area and requested an emergency excavation order. That afternoon, forensic experts, under the prosecutor's oversight, began retrieving the object. Once brought to shore, the bundle was placed on a large tarp under an isolation tent. Inside was a human skeleton wrapped in an old wool blanket with the rib cage and pelvis intact. The decayed fabric and encrusted sand indicated the body had been underwater for years. Around the skeleton's neck, technicians found an intact silver heart-shaped necklace, its chain oxidized but retaining its shape. When cleaned and photographed, the necklace perfectly matched the one Donna wore, as confirmed by her family in the 1987 file. All evidence was individually packaged, labeled, and sent to the Minnesota State Forensic Lab in St. Paul. Preliminary examination confirmed the remains matched Donna Halloran's description: female, approximately 1.67 meters tall, aged 35-40, with a small skeletal frame. A jawbone sample was selected for DNA testing, while dental X-rays of the teeth and skull were taken for comparison with dental records. Concurrently, technicians sampled the blanket and rope to identify their material origins. 3 weeks later, DNA results were returned. The DNA extracted from the jawbone fully matched Donna Halloran's profile from a 1985 medical database. The results were verified by 2 independent labs, with a 99.999% match probability. The dental report further confirmed the identity. The tooth structure, particularly a silver filling in the left molar, matched Donna's records from Elk River Dental. There was no doubt the remains were those of the victim missing since 1987. The police continued detailed examinations to determine the cause of death. A deep cut on the 4th right rib was consistent with a stab wound from a sharp knife. The neck bones showed unnatural fractures, suggesting significant force to the neck before death. The forensic report summarized, the likely cause of death was a sharp force injury to the chest, leading to lung perforation and acute blood loss. These findings aligned with Brennan Doyle's confession, where he admitted attacking the victim during a struggle. After completing the examination, the remains were handed over to the state prosecutor's office and the victim's family for reburial preparation. In the scene report, Mark Lamb detailed the discovery, recovery, and identification process, including photographs of each stage. Supplemental samples, the blanket, rope, and sediment, were sealed for further analysis. The Minnesota Bureau of Investigation's May 9, 2015 summary report concluded, the remains recovered at Lake Mille Lacs were identified as those of victim Donna Halloran, missing since October 1987. Based on DNA and dental analysis, combined with Brennan Doyle's confession, this is confirmed as the disposal site. The discovery of Donna's remains after nearly 30 years closed a critical part of the search, providing final evidence that the victim was deceased and strengthening the prosecution's case for the next phase. Following the confirmation of the Lake Mille Lacs findings, Minnesota authorities swiftly finalized the legal file to arrest Brennan Doyle. On May 18, 2015, the Sherburne County Prosecutor's Office, in coordination with the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation, submitted a prosecution file to the Minnesota Central District Court, requesting an urgent arrest warrant. The accompanying documents included DNA reports, dental analysis, Doyle's interrogation confession, and all related physical evidence, the silver knife, blood in the BMW, and the victim's silver necklace. The warrant was signed by a judge on the morning of May 19, authorizing Minnesota police and the FBI to arrest Brennan Doyle at his residence in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Early on May 20, 2015, a joint federal and Minnesota task force arrived at a quiet residential area in western Fort Dodge. Doyle was at home with his wife. When police knocked, he appeared surprised but did not resist. The arrest warrant was read on site, citing Minnesota's criminal code. He was handcuffed and escorted to a vehicle silently, in view of neighbors. The arrest adhered to protocol, with full video documentation, and his personal items, phone, computer, and work documents, were seized for further examination. Doyle was then transported to the Webster County Detention Center, awaiting extradition to Minnesota. The next day, Brennan Doyle was formally charged with 4 counts: second-degree murder, armed robbery, unlawful entry, and body concealment. The Sherburne County Prosecutor's Office held a press conference announcing the resolution of the Donna Halloran case after 28 years. Prosecutor Lisa Carpenter stated, "This is clear proof of the value of preserving evidence and the power of modern DNA technology. No matter how long it takes, justice can find its way back." Local and national media covered the story, calling it one of the longest resolved cold cases in Minnesota's investigative history. In a press release, the state police emphasized that the case was solved through a combination of scientific evidence, investigative persistence, and a robust evidence management system. The Minnesota Bureau of Investigation detailed the over 1-year process of reanalyzing DNA, matching it to Brennan Doyle, and confirming scene evidence. Images of the Lake Mille Lacs excavation and recovered items were released. The news spread rapidly across Minnesota, generating significant public interest. That same day, Brennan Doyle was transported by road from Fort Dodge to the Sherburne County Detention Center. There he underwent additional questioning to verify personal details and health status before formal prosecution procedures. In the record, Doyle remained calm, non-resistant, and briefly stated he had been waiting for this to happen. His attorney requested assurances of a fair trial and family visitation rights. Administrative procedures were completed that day, and a no-bail detention order was issued. The prosecutor's summary report outlined the 4 specific charges: first, second-degree murder under Minnesota Statute 609.19, second, armed robbery with a dangerous weapon, third, unlawful entry with intent, and fourth, concealment of a body to obstruct investigation. Each charge carried independent penalties, potentially leading to a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The prosecutor's office vowed to seek the harshest penalty allowed. On May 21, 2015, the Minnesota State Police issued an official press release declaring that the Donna Halloran case, missing from Elk River since 1987, was fully resolved due to DNA matching suspect Brennan Doyle. The release ended with 28 years later, the truth has surfaced. That day, dozens of media outlets from the Star Tribune to the Associated Press reported the story, viewing it as a symbol of Minnesota's investigative efforts to close cases buried by time. By month's end, Brennan Doyle was transferred to the State Central Detention Facility to await trial. His name was officially listed as a defendant in Minnesota's criminal court, closing a nearly 3-decade investigation and opening the criminal prosecution phase for the Donna Halloran case. A once-forgotten disappearance now illuminated by undeniable scientific evidence. After Brennan Doyle's arrest and charging, the Donna Halloran case officially entered the trial preparation phase. The Sherburne County Prosecutor's Office formed a special team of prosecutors, forensic experts, and technical advisors to compile all case evidence. Preparations spanned the summer of 2015, aiming to build a comprehensive prosecution file, ensuring legal and scientific integrity before court. Lead prosecutor Lisa Carpenter directly oversaw the review process. Her team categorized all materials into 4 main groups: physical evidence, scientific evidence, confessions, and witness testimonies. The physical evidence group included key items: the silver knife from the St. Cloud Theater, blood and epithelial DNA from Brennan Doyle in the BMW, the torn fabric, and Red Wing shoe prints matching the suspect's shoes. The scientific evidence group comprised all STR DNA results, dental analysis confirming the victim's identity, and forensic reports on the cause of death, verified by 2 independent labs. Additionally, Brennan Doyle's April 2015 interrogation confession was considered decisive direct evidence. Audio, video, and signed copies of his statement were archived and cited in the official file. Prosecutors also included testimonies from 2 independent witnesses, gas station employee Richard Myers and maintenance worker Robert Lindgren, to prove the suspect's movements and the knife's link to the Doyle family set. Meanwhile, the forensic team collaborated with the St. Paul lab to create a 3D scene reconstruction using forensic data, old maps, and confession details. The model depicted Doyle's movements from his home to Donna Halloran's house, entry through the front door, the living room altercation, departure, and drive to St. Cloud. The simulation matched bloodstain locations, shoe prints, and drag marks in the house, aligning with Doyle's confession and physical evidence. The model was printed as a series of images and a presentation video for courtroom use. During preparations, Doyle's defense attorney filed a motion to try the case under juvenile jurisdiction, arguing that in 1987, Doyle was 16 and lacked full awareness of his actions' consequences. The defense claimed adult prosecution violated humanitarian principles and constitutional rights. The prosecution strongly opposed, arguing that the intentional murder, car theft, and body concealment were calculated acts, not impulsive youthful mistakes. Furthermore, Doyle had been tried as an adult in the 2003 assault case, proving his legal capacity. A hearing on the motion was held at the Minnesota State Court in early August 2015. After reviewing both sides, the judge rejected the juvenile jurisdiction request, stating, "The severity, prolonged concealment, and deliberate body disposal indicate the defendant's clear awareness of legal consequences. The case will proceed under adult criminal law." This set a significant precedent for prosecuting cold cases involving juvenile offenders. Alongside evidence preparation, prosecutors coordinated with criminal experts for an independent audit to ensure objectivity. An external team evaluated the DNA results' reliability, evidence preservation protocols, and timeline alignment between the confession and physical evidence. The audit concluded that the entire investigation process, from collection to storage to analysis, met federal standards with no errors. By late September, all documents were finalized and submitted to the court. The file spanned over 2,000 pages, with appendices containing scene photos, maps, simulation excerpts, and test results. Lisa Carpenter held a final internal meeting, emphasizing the trial strategy, relying on the alignment of scientific evidence and the defendant's confession, supported by independent witness accounts. She stated the case was no longer a question, but a logically verified chain of facts. In mid-October 2015, the court set the official trial date. The prosecution completed witness summonses, listing investigators, forensic experts, and 2 civilian witnesses. The defense prepared a mitigation strategy, but couldn't dispute the DNA evidence legality. Local media began covering the case, describing it as one of Minnesota's most significant trials, where modern technology answered a nearly 3-decade-old disappearance. At this point, trial preparations were complete. The prosecution affirmed they had sufficient legal and scientific grounds to prove Brennan Doyle's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The Donna Halloran case, once a silent file in the archive, was now set to be brought to light in Minnesota's state court, where justice would be decided based on truths restored from 28 years of dormant evidence. The trial of Brennan Doyle for the Donna Halloran case was scheduled to begin on the morning of November 9, 2015, at the Sherburne County Courthouse in Elk River, Minnesota. This criminal trial drew significant public attention as it closed a case spanning nearly 3 decades. From early morning, the courthouse area saw local reporters, media representatives, and residents familiar with the 1987 disappearance. The courtroom was tightly controlled, with media permitted only limited coverage and no recording of the jury proceedings. Brennan Doyle, 44, appeared in a dark suit, escorted to the court under the supervision of 2 judicial officers. He maintained a calm, reserved demeanor. Accompanying him was his defense attorney from an Iowa law firm. The prosecution team included lead prosecutor Lisa Carpenter and 2 assistants, facing forensic experts, investigators, and summoned witnesses. Before proceedings began, presiding Judge Richard Millen read the indictment, listing 4 charges: second-degree murder, vehicle robbery, unlawful entry, and body concealment. Doyle confirmed he understood the charges. In the opening, Prosecutor Carpenter provided a summary of the investigation and the evidence leading to the arrest. She emphasized that this was not just an old case reopened, but a result of persistence and scientific strength. She listed the chain of evidence, DNA samples perfectly matching the suspect and crime scene items, the silver knife consistent with the Doyle family set, independent witness testimonies, the recovery of the body, and forensic reports confirming the cause of death. This chain was considered a cohesive system of evidence, eliminating all reasonable doubt. The defense attorney did not dispute the validity of the DNA evidence, but argued that Doyle's actions in 1987 were not intentional murder, but an unintended consequence of a panicked situation. He stressed that Doyle was only 16 at the time, lacking full awareness, and his subsequent concealment of the body was a spontaneous act driven by fear. The defense proposed reducing the charge from second-degree murder to manslaughter under special circumstances. The prosecution countered, asserting that the multiple knife attacks and body disposal were clear evidence of criminal intent. During the first 2 days, the court conducted witness examinations. Gas station employee Richard Myers testified first, confirming he saw a curly-haired teenager walking near the victim's house on the night of the disappearance. He clarified that the image matched Brennan Doyle's teenage appearance. Next, maintenance worker Robert Lindgren described finding the silver knife on the St. Cloud Theater roof. When the knife's image was displayed on a large screen, the courtroom fell silent. Lindgren confirmed it was the item he found in 1988 before turning it over to the police. Investigators Mark Lahm and Dr. Lauren Hines from the St. Paul lab also testified, detailing the DNA testing process and confirming the results' accuracy. On the 3rd day, the prosecution presented the 3D crime scene reconstruction based on forensic data. Detailed visuals of Donna Halloran's house, shoe print locations, torn fabric, bloodstain patterns, and movement paths were shown in court. Experts explained each step, demonstrating that the sequence of events fully aligned with Doyle's interrogation confession. The reconstruction ended with the BMW leaving the house and stopping at the St. Cloud Theater lot. The jury was asked to note each matching point. Local media called this presentation the case's most compelling visual evidence. On the 4th day, after hearing all witnesses, the defense attorney requested a private meeting with the prosecutor and judge in a closed session. The 2-hour discussion concluded with the announcement that Brennan Doyle agreed to change his plea and accept guilt to avoid a life sentence. The judge announced in court that the defendant admitted to second-degree murder, signed a plea agreement, and accepted the court's sentencing decision. The trial moved to sentencing on November 16, 2015. Judge Millen delivered the final ruling, emphasizing that the DNA evidence was the decisive factor, breaking a 28-year wall of silence. The sentence stated, based on scientific test results, the defendant's confession, and collected physical evidence, the court finds Brennan Doyle guilty of second-degree murder, robbery, unlawful entry, and body concealment. The court imposes a 25-year prison sentence without parole. As the sentence was read, Brennan Doyle only nodded, showing no reaction. The prosecution upheld the sentencing recommendation, stating it reflected the crime's severity. The victim's family, present at the trial, silently held hands. Prosecutor Carpenter spoke afterward. Justice arrived late, but it arrived. DNA technology spoke for someone who no longer could. In closing, the judge praised the investigators' efforts, noting that without rigorous evidence preservation, the case might never have been solved. He cited the Donna Halloran case as a prime example of modern forensic science's role in reconstructing truth from old files. The sentence was officially announced on November 17, 2015, and Brennan Doyle was transferred to Stillwater Prison to serve his term. Minnesota media covered the story extensively, with many articles describing it as proof that justice has no expiration date. On television, images of the Sherburne County Courthouse, lit up during the sentencing night, became a symbol of persistent case-solving efforts. The prosecutor's final report stated, "Truth can be buried by time but not erased." A single DNA sample in an old file brought answers after 28 years of waiting. With this ruling, the Donna Halloran case was officially closed in the justice system, ending one of Minnesota's longest-running missing person cases. After the sentencing of Brennan Doyle and the official closure of the Donna Halloran case, the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation conducted a comprehensive review of the investigation to draw lessons for other cold cases. In December 2015, an over 80-page report was published, detailing the process of reopening the file, recovering evidence, and applying STR-DNA technology to analyze decades-old biological samples. This report quickly became a key reference for investigative units across the state, particularly for counties with large backlogs of unresolved cases. From the practical experience of the Donna Halloran case, Minnesota police launched the Cold Case Revival Program, aimed at reviewing all unsolved cases with preserved biological evidence from before 2000. Over 100 cases were selected, prioritizing missing persons and homicides with unidentified perpetrators. Investigators were trained in recovering old samples, proper preservation, and submitting them to the St. Paul lab for STR or mitochondrial DNA testing. This technology helped identify suspects or victims in numerous cases thought unsolvable. The St. Paul Forensic Lab, which processed the DNA samples for the Halloran case, became the Midwest's primary genetic analysis hub. The facility was expanded, equipped with next-generation sequencing machines and automated matching software linked to the National SEODIS database. From 2016 to 2018, the lab assisted over 30 counties identifying suspects or victims in dozens of cases. Local media dubbed St. Paul the DNA heart of Minnesota, a symbol of forensic science's leap forward in modern criminal investigations. Beyond technical impact, the Donna Halloran case significantly shaped community awareness about long-term evidence preservation. Previously, many police departments disposed of old evidence after a set period to reduce storage costs. However, after this case was solved using samples over 20 years old, the Minnesota Department of Justice issued a new regulation requiring indefinite preservation of evidence from unsolved missing person or homicide cases. This was seen as a major step in maintaining the integrity of criminal files. Victim advocacy organizations in Minnesota used the Halloran case as a prime example in awareness campaigns. They emphasized that no matter how much time passes, justice can be served if evidence is properly preserved. Many families of people missing from the 1970s, 1990s contacted state police to inquire about DNA testing, sparking a new wave of hope. The Star Tribune wrote, The Halloran case not only ended a tragedy, but opened a new chapter for hundreds of other cases thought forgotten by time. Academically, universities like the University of Minnesota and St. Cloud State incorporated the case into criminology curricula. Students studied evidence recovery processes, chain of custody management, and the role of federal-state cooperation in cross-border investigation. Numerous academic papers cited it as evidence of DNA's critical role in resolving cold cases. In 2017, a U.S. Department of Justice report recognized the Donna Halloran case as one of Minnesota's longest-running cold cases fully resolved by DNA evidence. The report listed it as a case study demonstrating how technology and evidence management can transform seemingly unsolvable cases. Donna Halloran's name was added to the Victims Remembered project, honoring victims who received justice after years of being missing. Minnesota police held a small memorial ceremony in Elk River in late 2017. During the event, a representative read a brief message: "No case is truly closed until the truth is found. Every preserved piece of evidence, every stored sample, is a commitment to justice." Dozens of young investigators from the Cold Case DNA Initiative attended, viewing it as a milestone in the state's criminal investigation transformation. In its final report, the Sherburne County Prosecutor's Office wrote, "The Donna Halloran case proves that time cannot erase evidence, and science can speak for victims." DNA technology not only identified the perpetrator, but closed decades-long cases, bringing justice to the deceased and peace to the community. With those words, the Donna Halloran file was fully closed, leaving a lasting mark on Minnesota's judicial history, a nearly 30-year-old disappearance resolved through human persistence and scientific progress. The Donna Halloran case, a woman missing since 1987, found after 28 years through DNA technology, is not just a story of delayed justice, but a profound testament to the value of faith, science, and community responsibility in modern American society. Every detail reflects core principles Americans cherish: the perseverance of investigators, the transparency of the legal system, and the belief that justice, however late, remains meaningful. The Sherburne County Police's careful preservation of Donna's blood, fabric, and hair samples for decades enabled a breakthrough when STR-DNA technology advanced. This dedication shows that in any work, especially public service, responsibility and adherence to process can define the line between stalemate and hope. This lesson applies not only to the justice system, but to all citizens in modern American society, where data, evidence, and accuracy are increasingly vital. The case also demonstrates that technology can bridge the past and present. Through investment in forensic science, Minnesota not only closed one case, but opened opportunities for hundreds of families awaiting answers. In today's world, this reminds us that investing in knowledge, data storage, and technological development serves not just immediate needs, but also sustains justice and societal trust. Ultimately, the Halloran case teaches that truth may be buried by time, but never lost, if people persist in seeking it. Thank you for following the journey to justice for Donna Halloran, proof that truth may sleep but never vanishes. Please subscribe to our channel to join us in exploring more cases once buried in the past but revived through the power of faith and technology.